everybody, and welcome to another ASMR video here on the channel. And tonight's video, we're back with the ever popular scary stories, but tonight, rather than no sleep, which I thought we'd take a little break from just because we did a 2-hour video semi-recently on that Reddit page, we're hopping back on to Let's Not Meet, which are supposedly scary real-life true encounters as opposed to the fictitious ones of no sleep. But before we do get into getting scared, got a little announcement. I did put a community post up, but often they go missed. But next Wednesday, so that's Wednesday the 27th of November, we're going to be doing our first proper live stream. I did live stream FIFA like years ago. We're not counting that. I've got the right equipment, I've got the setup, I've made some overlays and stuff, so we're pretty much, ready to go. So next Wednesday we'll be doing some live scary Reddit stories, probably jump between Let's Not Meet and No Sleep and maybe ghost stories as well. But it should be fun. It means we can live react to the stories together, and I'll probably stream 2 to 3 hours, and I believe I'll put the graphic on screen, 10:30 UK time, which is 5:30 ET, I think. But it should be a lot of fun, and then I think the week after the plan is to do another live stream, but it'd be a bit more of a light-hearted one, and we'll do live reactions to Vessel, TIFU, Am I the Arsehole, that kind of thing. Moving forward, we'll kind of alternate between the two formats, scary and funny, basically. But yeah, it should be a lot of fun, and hopefully I'll see as many of you guys as possible in the chat next Wednesday night. Enough of an introduction, let's get into story number 1. Before we get into these, being real life stories, I'm just going to say trigger warning. Often there's themes of kind of kidnapping and stalking and things like that, so if that's not your kind of thing, I suggest going and finding another video. But our first story is titled "A Random Guy Saved Me from Being Drugged." This happened this Saturday, 2 days ago. I'm a 19-year-old freshman at uni who moved from a fairly small town to a big city. There was a guy I talked to over Tinder for around 2 weeks. He was cute and seemed nice. We had a lot in common. He even studied at the same university. He was older though. He already had a degree and was now doing post-grad. The first time we ever met, we went out to grab a coffee on Monday, exactly a week ago. I had a great time, and when he asked me if I'd like to get drinks on Saturday, I happily said yes. We met up at a local bar and talked without a moment of awkwardness for 2 hours. We really clicked. I had to go to the bathroom, and when I came back, a man was waiting for me outside the toilet. He stopped me and told me the guy sitting at my table put something in my drink and asked if I wanted him to call the police. I thanked him but said no, everything's fine, and went back to my table. I really liked the guy and wanted to believe that the random man was just pranking me. Still, I wasn't willing to risk it, so I told him directly what happened. I said, "I'm sorry, this sounds insane, but after I got out of the bathroom, some random guy told me you put something in my drink." He laughed and said that's insane, as if we were giggling at the situation together. He wasn't serious about it at all. I apologised and said I don't think he did that, not at all, but I'd be much more at peace if he chugged my drink, just so I know that the random guy was pranking me, because nothing like this ever happened to me before. I apologized again and said the drinks are on me and I'm very sorry to make the situation awkward. He said that's absolutely not a problem, he just has to go pee first. I waited. After 15 minutes I realised he's not coming back. I waited around for a little bit longer and after half an hour I paid and went home. Upon getting home I checked my Tinder and saw he deleted his account. Okay, maybe he thought I'm so insane our date made him delete the app. Still, it bothered me. I googled him and found nothing. Today I went to the records office at my uni and asked if a person with his name was studying there. The lady working there told me that's private information and she can't share. I then asked if a person with his name ever obtained a degree from this university. She looked it up and told me that no one with his name has ever obtained a degree here. He lied to me. He told me he did his undergraduate degree at my uni. He hasn't. Or alternatively, he told me a fake name. I'm now sure that he had terrible intentions and did spike my drink. I was more than lucky that someone noticed. I've no idea what he'd do to me had I drank that, and I really don't want to know. I'm still a bit creeped out about the situation. I did delete Tinder, and I'm very glad I didn't give him my phone number or my address. He did offer to pick me up and I cleverly said no, yet dumbly told him that the coffee place we met up at is walking distance to my apartment, so he knows the rough area I live in, as well as my first and last name and where I study. I don't think there's anything I can do about it though. I seriously doubt he even gave me his real name. To the random Tinder guy who lied to me and probably tried to drug me, let's not meet. Yeah, it's terrifying that this probably happens so much. I think just a good rule of thumb is, if you're not with people you don't fully know, I just wouldn't leave your drink at all, just chug it. But yeah, thank goodness somebody spotted it, otherwise it could have been really bad, and I don't think this person will be bumping into him anytime soon. I imagine he'll just want to drop off the face of the earth, probably. Right. Next up, this one is titled "My ex-con status has angered someone in the neighbourhood." Yeah, so I live in a gated subdivision. It isn't really the kind of place that has many issues, far away from where I grew up. I've never been one to shy away from my past. I did 13 years in federal prison for some crimes that I am still trying to atone for. I know what's waiting for me on the other side, and I know where I'm heading, but I'm still trying to make things right in the world and leave something positive for both of my daughters. Lately we've been the subject of some random acts of vandalism and threatening messages. One was a letter in our mailbox that said, "Murderer." I committed no such atrocity. Nobody was murdered in any of my crimes. Given that we're just getting past the Halloween season, I assumed it was someone just trying to play a scary prank. More or less, no harm, no foul. My wife found a letter under her windshield wipers that had a similar message saying, "Don't let him fool you," which included my mugshot from many years ago. A mugshot that even I'd have trouble finding, but managed to do so after sufficient digging. Our garage was also spray painted, a lawn gnome decapitated, and a series of plastic forks were left in my yard. My daughters were scared, and that's absolutely where the line gets drawn with me. I know people like to say put cameras and call the police. The ones considered that I work for a security company, specifically ones that hire ex-cons to save people from people like me. My house has cameras in places you would never think to look, and within a matter of minutes I was able to find a shot of the person responsible. If you're wondering why I didn't do this in the first place, I did. He was just better at hiding his face the first few times. But like all criminals, he slipped up and got too confident. I can relate. I knew where to find him. I didn't call the cops. I went over there myself. I knew his parents. Yes, he's a teenager. I walked over there and told his parents what he did, and they didn't believe me. So I happily showed them the printouts of my security footage that had him clear as day on there. I'll give them credit. They stood up for their son, but also acknowledged when he screwed up and called him over. Honestly, the look on his face when he saw me inside of his house was all the confirmation anyone needed. He became very nervous and started shaking. I'm not a monster. I assured him that I wasn't there to hurt anyone and that I wanted to have the matter resolved. He had vandalism, trespassing, damage to private property, and mail tampering to answer to. I asked why he did it. Basically the same. The answer I got was that he and his friends were trying to do some sort of true crime series for what I'm assuming is maybe a YouTube channel or something. His explanation wasn't very excessive. I gave him a choice. The police could be called or he could pay for the damages he caused. His father asked if he paid for the damages, I would get rid of the footage I have. I told him no. I assured him if the damages were paid for and he stayed away from my family, I wouldn't call the police. But if he didn't, or did it again, I would. They agreed. His father asked me again if I would reconsider, but again I refused. This was his second chance. I'm being very merciful and forgiving those who trespassed against us. I don't know why people feel the need to destroy something that someone is trying to build. In my case, it's stability. We have to seriously start accepting that people are trying to change for the better. Stan, let's not meet, unless of course you are coming to clean your mess. That's not really a scary one, that one, but fair play to that guy for being so patient, because when his family started getting scared, he very easily could have completely and utterly flipped his lid, but he's handled that perfectly, realistically. Our third story is titled, I once went hiking with this guy. He showed me a dead body. This started when I was at my childhood friend's apartment for what was supposed to be a fun little movie night. We hadn't hung out in a while and we were catching up. Our place was cozy, a little disorganised and full of girly decor. We were in our comfiest sweatpants about to watch princess movies. Our apartment isn't the most tidy. Things are a bit scattered around, but it's clean and so authentic, which always made me feel at home. We decided on ordering pizza for dinner. She mentioned that Sherwood, someone I haven't met yet, would bring the pizza over. At first I was not happy to hear that. I thought that meant she'd invited other friends over to join us, which wasn't what I had in mind. But I was in for a surprise. Sherwood turned out just to be our delivery guy for the night. He wasn't joining us. When he got to the apartment, there was this awkward air about him. He was obviously nervous, fumbling a bit with the pizza boxes, and not quite making eye contact. My friend introduced us quickly, and it was clear from her overly thankful demeanour that Sherwood did a lot more for her than just fetch dinner. After handing us the pizza, there was this brief moment of forced small talk. My friend was super nice to him despite his awkwardness. He wasn't the best conversationalist and seemed really out of place. Then Sherwood asked for my number. I was in a tough spot because our mutual friend was sitting right there, so I just gave it to him. Yeah, we chatted for maybe 5 minutes before my friend gave him a cue to leave with something like, "Thanks so much for dropping this off." He seemed to get the hint. We both gave him a hug before my friend said something like "drive safe," giving him another cue to leave. When I asked my friend what that was all about, she basically explained that Sherwood was her unpaid personal assistant. He did her grocery shopping, he dropped off pizza, and he did all this other stuff. I think Sherwood was just a really lonely guy desperate for interaction, especially female interaction. My friend and I were both young and immature back then. We were about 33, but I think we both knew something was seriously wrong with Sherwood. It was a little hard to articulate because we couldn't point out exactly what his problem was. Sherwood started a group chat with my friend and me. He just sent a meme or two every week. It felt like he was trying to stay relevant without being intrusive. Maybe he was used to being sidelined or even blocked by other girls in the past. It felt like he was trying to make me remember him, but also carefully trying not to give me a reason to block him too. I can't speak on his behalf, that's just what it felt like. Sherwood also offered help with errands. The first time I said thanks for asking, but no. He asked every weekend after that. I made the mistake of accepting his help. I knew better. I had recently found a great deal for a new washing machine on Craigslist, but I had no idea how to pick it up and install it. When I mentioned it in the chat, Sherwood excitedly volunteered to take care of the whole thing. He handled the whole pickup and installation like a total champ, which saved me so much hassle. I tried to pay him for his efforts because I wanted to show appreciation, but he wouldn't accept any money. I insisted. Eventually he suggested that I could repay him by joining him for a hike. I was very uneasy about this. It felt a bit too personal and almost like it could be mistaken for a date. But Sherwood framed it as nothing more than a friendly outing, like a transaction to balance out the favour. I agreed to the hike. I rationalised it by telling myself it was fair trade for installing the washing machine, and that it was genuinely a form of payment, especially since I didn't think he had too many friends. This hike felt like maybe a way for him to have some companionship. I thought it might be nice helping him. Part of me was still uneasy about spending time with him in such an isolated setting. The day of the hike, Sherwood picked this trail that was nearby. I had been there before. It's gorgeous. As we walked along together, he chatted about ordinary things like work, the weather, and his hobbies. Everything seemed normal until he suggested we go off the main path to see something special he wanted to share. What could that even mean? We reached the secluded spot and there was a dead body. My heart pounded so violently as Sherwood stood there, eerily calm and nonchalant. The casualness in his demeanour made me feel even more uneasy. It felt like he wasn't showing me a dead body, but also revealing this darker side of himself. It smelled bad, but not like in the movies. I didn't know how long it had been there, I'm not a biologist. But my guess is that it had smelled a lot worse before, but now it had gone down. At that moment, I mumbled some excuse about needing to get back quickly and started walking briskly towards the main path. I was urging Sherwood to follow me. I thought maybe this was some twisted mind game, like a way to intimidate me or show me that he wasn't just some harmless little boy. maybe he was trying to send a message that said, "You should know I'm familiar with things like this." Oh, there's another possibility. Maybe he just wanted me to think about him more. Sometimes when I talk to people, I feel like they only notice me for the time that we're together, and then they won't think of me until we meet next. It's possible Sherwood felt that way with me, and maybe he thought showing me a dead body would make him less forgettable. I mean, that's one way to do it. But on the surface he appeared oblivious to how inappropriate this was. As we walked back together, I was in full fight or flight mode, instinctively looking around to see if there were other hikers or rangers, anyone who could make me feel like I wasn't alone. The moment I spotted someone else on the trail, I called out, not to expose Sherwood, but just asking for directions back to the parking area. I wanted to make sure Sherwood and I wouldn't be left alone together. I asked this gentleman to walk us back to the parking lot. I wasn't going to take no for an answer. I kept pretending like I was confused about his directions, and eventually he agreed to just walk us there. Getting out from that guy was my way of re-anchoring myself to safety and normality, while I was still under the shock of what Sherwood had shown me. We got to the parking area. There I called my friend and told her I was with Sherwood. I suggested he could drop me off with her and that we'd be there in 20 minutes, and Sherwood agreed. That was my way of making sure that if anything happened, it was on the record that Sherwood was the last person to have been with me. Also, I immediately texted my friend what had happened to get that on record too. When I got to her apartment, we said thanks to Sherwood and kindly told him to go away. I had already told her through text, but then I started going into all the detail. The fact that the body had insects, the fact the face was decomposing but still recognisable. Her reaction was pure horror. Not just about the dead body, but also how nonchalantly Sherwood had treated the whole situation. She confessed she always sensed something was off about him, even though she'd never imagined anything this disturbing. We both agreed that we needed to remove Sherwood from our lives. She admitted she felt stuck and she'd become too reliant on Sherwood to just fire him cold turkey. We planned out how we would do it. It was this gradual phasing out plan. We would limit our interactions to times when others were present. We would slowly reduce our responses to his texts. I would never ask for his help again, and my friend would ask for less and less. Sherwood kept texting during weekends, offering to run errands or asking if we needed anything, to which my friend would reply, "I'm trying to work on being more independent, but you've been such a help." Eventually, as my friend started dating someone new, she introduced Sherwood to her boyfriend, and Sherwood never contacted her after that. I'd called the cops the same night of the incident, but it was a while before we heard more news about it. At least a full month later, a news report discovering a dead body in that area where Sherwood had taken me hiking. They made an arrest, but not of Sherwood, but of this other guy that Sherwood followed on Instagram. I've no idea if Sherwood was connected to the murder. Reflecting on everything, I think there's one clear moral of the story. Trust your instincts. Well, stay away from Sherwood. Like, what is that guy's deal? Also, I find really odd that I get work experience, but like, this doesn't feel like a proper job. This literally sounds like this 23-year-old girl just has him as a kind of slave. But yeah, weird guy. We've got a short one here, titled "My Brother's Encounter with the Man in the Black Jacket in Late 80s Moscow." I was born in Moscow, Russia in the early 90s, but my brother was born in 1980, and this is his story. I had him write this to follow the rules and get the best version. I was about 7 to 8 years old, and me along with my friends were the absolute biggest idiots in terms of doing dangerous stuff. We would make smoke bombs, fireworks, etc. out of whatever we found, and did tons of other stupid stuff. Russia in the late 80s resembled the post-apocalyptic wasteland you see in movies in a lot of places, mainly because there was really no law and order and no one cared. You were able to buy crazy things off the streets. My father was once offered an old rocket launcher. With this, parents often just let their kids mess around in places, so we would be doing stupid stuff in abandoned buildings. Well, one day we were messing around with one of my friends, noticed someone lurking nearby. We didn't really care, we were used to seeing weird stuff, but after a bit we noticed the person was not really moving, they just stood there. When he noticed we had seen him, the man slowly walked into view. A large bald man, black coat, a nice one, likely an import which was expensive at the time, and American sneakers, also very expensive. He didn't really greet us or anything, but must have seen me looking at his shoes because he said, "Do you like my shoes? I have more if you want them. Come on." Now, a few things really unnerved any of us, but this dude definitely did. If you know anything about Russia in that era, this dude looked like someone you did not want to mess with. The kicker though, once he turned around, my friend noticed he had a gun in his pants. The second he saw that, my friend yelled "gun" and booked it, and we all just scattered. I just heard this guy curse loudly, but we did not see him again. Now if the story ended here, it would have just been a creepy encounter. But sometime later we were no longer allowed to play in that area. I found out much later that they had found another child beaten to death with a rock in that building shortly after our experience. To be honest, as a kid I never really thought much about this until my parents told me about the death, at which point the dots connected and I realised what we potentially ran away from. That is absolutely terrifying. I feel like they potentially escaped more than just being beaten up or beaten to death. Like, I don't know, dying is bad, but I feel like there are worse things, and with the guy wearing all flashy things, I feel like he was trying to almost lure them for other things, but that is terrifying. But at least they got away. Got an interesting one here. Professional squatter tries to seduce my boyfriend in order to invade my home. My boyfriend and I live in a big party city, so we're pretty used to strange neighbours and odd people. But 1 month ago we had a really unsettling encounter, and we just got the full context today. We live in a subunit of a large house. Our landlord and one other person live in the other units of the house. We noticed that our landlord had brought a few different dates over to the house. We didn't mind, and we weren't surprised when a girl was walking around the property. Last month, we went to sleep at about midnight and woke up 30 minutes later to knocks at the door. I told my boyfriend not to open it, but he said it was the girl we saw earlier. I still felt very uneasy about the situation, so I put my clothes on, grabbed my keys and picked up our dog in case I had to run out the back door. I then go stand in the hallway next to the front door so I can hear the conversation, but she can't see me. She sounds very drunk, and she tells my boyfriend that she is my landlord's fiancée. I'm I'm somewhat confused by this because of our landlord's other dates. However, she starts talking about how we are good tenants and mentions personal details about her, so we assume she actually is his fiancée. She asks my boyfriend for a lighter for her cigarette. We expect this to be the end of the interaction, but she then tells my boyfriend that our landlord is at a hotel cheating on her right now. My boyfriend responds with, "Oh wow," and she then starts flirting with him. She invited him to come swim in our landlord's pool with her and he declined. I'm starting to get less scared and more annoyed at her. She is rambling about a bunch of different topics and basically holding my boyfriend hostage. Finally she gets to our neighbours. She starts going on a racist rant about them, using slurs I have literally never heard in real life because they are that bad. At this point I'm pretty sick of this woman, so I step into the doorframe and tell her that we have to wake up early. She was clearly shocked by me showing up. This is when her face changes. She glares at me. Suddenly we aren't good tenants anymore. She calls us white trash and for not taking our garbage bins out in time for trash day. She screams that she's going to get us evicted if we don't get on her good side. At this point we close the door in her face. We had a really long discussion about whether or not we should complain to our landlord about her. We assumed that he actually was dating this girl and that she just happened to be crazy. She probably caught him cheating and was trying to sleep with my boyfriend for revenge, but realised that wasn't going to happen. Eventually we decided to text him. He apologised for the situation but was very vague. He does mention that she is not his fiancée and that he will remove her. We assume this is the end of it. For the last month she's been blasting music, banging on the walls, taking things out the shed and coming into our section of the backyard in the middle of the night. I was absolutely terrified the first week and couldn't sleep at all. I would stay up all night listening to sounds and staring at our back window to see if she was in our yard. Eventually I got used to it. Our landlord had basically vanished. We haven't seen him for the entire month until today. Today my boyfriend is walking our dog when he sees our landlord back on his porch. Our landlord finally tells us the full story. He went on a few dates with this woman and she seemed totally normal. Eventually they go back to his section of the house, and when he wakes up she's behaving much differently. He asks her to head out while he goes to work. He comes back and she's still there. It turns out this is what she does. She goes home with men and invades their home until they get her lawfully evicted. My landlord went to a different property for a month while he worked on his case to get her evicted. We found out that she got served an eviction warning the same day she came to our house. That's why she was flirting with my boyfriend in an attempt to squat in our home. That's why she was so angry when she found out I lived there too. My landlord actually negotiated a way to get her out of the house a few days early. He bought her a one-way flight to another state. So if you live in the Midwest, watch out. She's coming north. I'm very thankful that it's over though, so let's not meet again. Squad girl. Some people are just unbelievably unhinged and will do anything not to pay rent apparently. Right, next story is a lovely title. A man was living in my basement for months. You hear stories about people unknowingly squatting in other people's homes but never think it would actually happen to you. Well, it happened to me. years ago, I was living alone in a two-family house on the second floor with my then toddler. For the story to make sense, I need to try and explain the layout and the backstory. My brother's close friend at the time lived on the first floor and is the one who referred me to the landlord. We had private front entrances but a shared back entrance with a staircase that ran from the basement all the way to the second floor. I would frequently leave my back door unlocked because I had a habit of locking my keys in the house, and my downstairs neighbour could let me in the back door. The downstairs neighbour had a friend who was kind of down and out. He had a history of substance abuse but was supposedly clean at the time. He was a relatively nice guy, and my neighbour had been letting him stay on his couch for a while. The neighbour had a 4-year-old daughter, and having someone constantly sleeping on the couch without any plans of finding a permanent living situation was becoming disruptive to their everyday lives. Neighbour tells him he needs to go. It was summertime, so the friend decides he's going to sleep on the couch on our covered porch. We tell him that's not acceptable, and when we asked him to leave, we meant the property in general. It had also become abundantly clear that he was using again, and his behaviour had become somewhat erratic. He was also making a lot of unsolicited advances on me, which had become increasingly uncomfortable. He wasn't happy, but it wasn't our problem. He stopped coming around and we no longer saw him around town. Fast forward a month or two and I noticed things going missing. Jewellery, small amounts of money left around the house, lighters, inconsequential items I'd written off as lost. This house was old with paper-thin walls. The back door in question was right next to the bathroom along one side of the shower. It also made a very distinct noise when opened. One day my car was at the mechanic, so it probably appeared that I wasn't home. I'm showering and I swear I hear the back door open. I freeze, practically stop breathing, but after a few minutes when nobody murdered me American Psycho style, I wrote it off again. I'm a notorious wimp and had a history since childhood of thinking every strange noise was a potential murderer. This was a long time ago, so I don't remember the exact length of time, possibly a few weeks. The basement was really big and shared, and the landlord also stored stuff down there. It was very packed with some dark corners. We rarely went down there, but the landlord comes by one day and goes down to the basement. He hears a strange noise, grabs a baseball bat and finds this man in our basement. The man pushes the landlord down and runs out of the house and down the street. We call the police, who find him hiding in a trash can around the corner. Upon further investigation, we find the basement window had been ever so slightly propped open. In a back corner behind some boxes was a nest of blankets filled with our missing items, plus some drug paraphernalia. It reminded me of Creature's Nest under the stairs at Grimmauld Place. He'd also left his flip phone behind in the chaos, where we found a lot of pictures of me sleeping. Oh gosh. This man had been high on crack, living in our basement and regularly entering my apartment both when I wasn't home and when I was sleeping for months. While he seemed like a nice guy sober, he was regularly high on hard drugs, and that changes people. I still get chills knowing he could have done anything to me and my child, and I would have never seen it coming. The worst part is that the charges somehow got dropped and they never even consulted us, and they never gave us an option as the victims. This was not even close to his first criminal offence. My state is notoriously soft on non-violent criminals, regardless of whether it was a victimless crime or not. My local police department is also notorious for making deals in exchange for information on even small part-time dealers. horrendous. Like, it's just such like a violation of privacy, isn't it? It's a violation of everything. Yeah, I didn't like that one. And we're gonna finish with this one. The time a stranger followed me for hours and wouldn't let me escape. A few years ago, I, 35 male, had a terrifying experience that still haunts me to this day. I was living in a busy city at the time and I had just finished a late shift at work. It was around 10 PM and I was walking home through the quieter side streets of my neighbourhood. I'm someone who's always been somewhat cautious, so I was alert, keeping an eye out for any unusual activity. As I walked down the street, I noticed a guy about 20 feet behind me. At first I didn't think much of it. He seemed like just another person walking the same route, but something about his movements caught my attention. He wasn't walking in a normal manner. He was clearly trying to keep his distance, but his pace matched mine, no matter how fast or slow I went. After a few blocks, I decided to take a detour. I turned onto a side street that was a little less populated, hoping he wouldn't follow. I checked over my shoulder and sure enough he was still there. It's hard to describe, but I felt the hair on the back of my neck stand up. My instincts told me something wasn't right. I crossed the street hoping that would throw him off, but he crossed too. Without hesitation, I thought, okay, this is weird now. I had to make a decision. I wasn't that far from home, but something about this guy's persistence made me uncomfortable. I decided to stop at a nearby 24/7 convenience store to try to lose him. The store was empty save for the cashier, who barely looked up from their phone. I quickly grabbed a drink and stood by the door, hoping to see if the guy would pass by. He didn't. He stopped right outside the store. At this point I could see his face clearly through the glass. He was staring directly at me. I panicked and ran back into the aisles, trying to calm down. I could hear his footsteps growing louder as he approached the door. I couldn't stay here any longer. I tried to pay, but I was so rattled I couldn't focus on anything. The cashier just stared at me, probably wondering why I looked so frantic. I threw the drink on the counter, paid quickly and bolted out the door. I ran down another street, not wanting to look back, but knowing I had to. I didn't see him for a while my heart slowly started to calm down. But as I turned the corner to my street, I saw him again, standing at the far end of the block. It was like he had been waiting there the whole time. I wasn't sure what to do next. I considered calling the police, but he hadn't really done anything illegal. Just followed me for a while. I didn't want to overreact, but I also couldn't shake the feeling that this wasn't a coincidence. He was still standing there watching me, and now he was closer. I took a deep breath, checked both ways, and made a beeline for my apartment building, not daring to look back until I was inside. When I got to my apartment, I locked the door and stayed there, staring out the window for what felt like hours. I didn't see him again after that night, but the whole experience left me unsettled for weeks. I never felt comfortable walking home alone at night after that, even though I've lived in a city my entire life. I still wonder if I was just being paranoid, but there was something off about the way he followed me. It felt intentional, and it left me with a gut feeling I couldn't shake. If you're reading this, the guy who followed me for hours that night, let's not meet again. Well, it's like the other story said, always trust your gut. It might have just been coincidence, or a man being silly, in a silly, goofy mood, but realistically, probably not. To be honest, this kind of reminded me of my sort of own story a little bit. I feel like I've probably told this on the channel before, but basically when I was at uni, I lived in a really nice house in my second year, but it was like on the cusp of a really nice area and a not very nice area at all. Anyway, it was literally like middle of the day, walking back from a lecture, and it was quicker to kind of just walk straight through a part of the not very nice bit. It literally saved like 10 minutes based on where the lecture was. So I decided to do it. And basically there was a guy on a bike, or he was sat like on a fence with his bike next to him. And I saw him, but I just walked past him. Anyway, when I get about maybe like 30 meters in front of him, he gets on his bike and starts slowly moving the same direction as me, which I don't really think anything of it. But like this person, they weren't like speeding up or anything, and they matched my pace, and I kind of clocked it early doors, and they weren't on their phone or like anything. They were literally just like staring at me. I must have like just quickly glanced back or kind of shifted my body like walking position so I could look back. Every time he was just staring like dead at me. But I was kind of just like, oh, whatever, like he's probably just like, I don't know, slowly meandering home. So anyway, I did a loop, like a full circle, just to see if he was following me, and lo and behold, he followed my exact route. At which point he probably sussed that I was onto him, kind of thing, I guess. But anyway, I kind of walked through, and thankfully, again, like this person, I came to a shop, my local corner shop, and he had started to close the gap, but again, like, he wasn't like absolutely like pacing it towards me, but the gap was closed from like 40 meters to like maybe like 20 meters or something. But then I went in the shop, and I could kind of like see him out there. Like the shop, kind of the front door was in like a little open like square bit with like sort of flats overlooking it. And he stayed out there for a few minutes and then left. And as soon as like he left and the shop was out of view, because I didn't want him to see my house or whatever, I literally bought something from the shop and just like fast walked to my door. And then I think I was due to go out to uni later that day, and you bet that I did not leave the house. But again, maybe I was being paranoid, but you really do just have to trust that gut instinct, realistically. And I had like my MacBook and stuff, like I was a prime robbing suspect. So trust your gut, basically. That's the moral of most of these stories. But anyways, that is gonna do it for tonight's video. Yeah, reminder, next Wednesday night, see you for the live stream, hopefully.